welcome back to another episode of Procrastination Podcast. We talk about anime life and everything in between. My name's Matt,
I'm Robert.
I'm Alonzo.
and we are back after a little bit of a wait, switching up the way we're doing things a little bit. But as you can see, but as always, we got some interesting topics here to talk about here today. And but before all that, how y'all been doing, man? It's been a while.
Been all right. I recently had to had a passing in the family. Had to go to a funeral, and that was a little tough.
Yeah,
More of an extended family, so a little bit different. Trying to be there for who I can.
yeah.
But while I was there, right, I spent a lot of time talking to my grandfather and some of his friends and things.
Mm.
And one of the things that he said that, well, he said a bunch of things that I think are crazy, and I'm like, I don't really want to out this man that much, right? Like, it's like,
Right.
okay, granted, like, if anyone else heard you say this, you'd be done.
Canceled immediately.
But then I was thinking, I was like, okay, but there's one thing that he did say that I was like, this would be a good thing to talk about a little bit. He said, dating shouldn't exist.
Well,
He said, also, every time he talks about love, he'll say, this thing we call love. That's what he'll say. He always preface it that way.
this
This thing
thing.
we call love. But he said that is developed. It is not something that you would know even if you saw it at first glance, right? And he says that's why dating should be a thing. He's like, you should just be assigned to someone almost. It's like, oh, your family, they know you best. Here's the person for you.
I mean, there couldn't be a more appropriate sound. Hey, no
uh,
freaking way. You like, heck no. Heck no. Like, I feel like I'd feel more comfortable letting you pick my person.
than anybody in your family.
Hey, no. I mean, love him. I think my mom should probably pick somebody. My dad would probably pick someone pretty good. He has pretty good taste, I think. Um, but I ain't my brother. I mean, I think my family knows a little bit. But as far as
Mm.
personality traits and like some of the nitty gritty, like, I don't think they know. I don't think they know well enough. I don't know. That'd be scary.
My family will be out to sabotage me, so no.
Yeah, depending on which family members, none of my immediate family, I don't think, but outside of that, I mean, but I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I do agree that you definitely got to give things time in relationships, and people probably don't have as much patience as they should with certain relationships.
Definitely agree with that. That's to me was something I was just like, that's so weird to think like that. It's like, in what world do you live in that would make sense? Like, yeah, okay, no dating, so you don't know this anything about this person, and then and he was also talking about marriage specifically, right? And he's like,
Mm.
so yeah, get married to a person you don't know, and I'm like, that's so weird. And
Is
again,
that what
he,
he did?
huh?
Is that what he
No,
did?
no. It's insane, man. I don't know what to say. He has these thoughts and he's living in a different world, man, different mind, completely
If
than
they,
his own.
I mean, I was going to give him benefit of the doubt if it worked out for him. I'd be like, okay, maybe it worked for him. Maybe trying to, look out. But yeah, with that bit of information, I can't be agreeing with any of that foolishness
Yeah.
for me.
He also said that if you if you're he's like dating without being married means that there is no commitment. That's what he said. He said there's no commitment there. There's nothing keeping you two together. That's what he said. He's like, that's the
That's
reason people get married. Other than the religious aspect, which I kept telling him to like, I was like, okay, well, let's take religion out of it. Why would I do this? And he's like, I mean, if you don't marry her, how would you keep her with you? I was like, isn't that the point of the relationship? Are we not? Do we not establish that up front? I surely hope we ain't got to get married to establish that.
That sounds like some very playboyish kind of ways. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
oh, we ain't married. I mean, what? So I can't cheat. We ain't married. What do you mean?
Right?
Yeah, I was with 16 other girls last night, but I'm with you today because you're the one I love. But we're not married, so it's not cheating. So it's not cheating.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fucked her, but I make love to you.
Yeah, I like I said, I do not agree with this man. And I was like, all right. I mean, I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want to back, I don't want to push anything away from, to tell him like, oh,
No.
if you're going to religious reasons, if there's some commitment things that you want to do, with your own, deities and stuff, I'm like, okay, good, I understand that. But but if you're like, oh, the reason you do this is so that your relationship has now this commitment, has this law that keeps you there. And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Right.
To me, it sounded like he was like, oh, now it puts fear that like
right.
if you don't satisfy this relationship, then there's some some lawyers need to get involved. So that'll keep you guys together. I'm like, has fear ever been a good motivator to a relationship?
I mean, I think that's already disproven by so many statistics. I mean, look at the
Right.
stats on divorce in America. It's more than
Okay.
50%, I think now. Like,
Right.
like that's very much disproven at this point. So I don't, can't agree with that one. But I mean, I like I said, I do agree with this first point. I do think, like, yeah, for sure, love is something that's developed. I think you have compatibility with people, but then the love part, like real love, is definitely like a developed thing, sticking it out, going through stuff together, and all that good stuff. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting how some people can have good points and then totally
Yeah.
drift.
It's like, oh man, this is a good conversation, Granddad. Then he'll be like, marriage shouldn't exist. Dating shouldn't exist. Like, okay.
The hot takes, man. His podcast would be hidden.
Okay. And I want to talk about his friend, right? So I ended up going to his friend Bill's place. And Bill, he is a car salesman. Seems like, again, another, super brilliant black man, right? So I'm like, looking up to him kind of thing already, that I speak with him for an hour or 2 hours or whatever. And I'm already thinking like, oh man, like this guy knows. Right. And I'm like, and he talks about like finance and stuff because obviously he's a businessman. And then we're sitting down. Then my granddad finally comes back, and we start talking about random things that my granddad talks about. And then Bill gets into this like Andrew Tate mode, where he just starts talking that like the man needs to be the man of the house, and anytime you put a woman above a man, that is incorrect. Woman is always second, And I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like, don't. Like, especially
I
with,
can't
like,
get canceled. I'm too young.
I was like, oh please, like how are people thinking like this? He said something as simple as like he's like,
God.
people used to say your father and your mother. He's like, where's your father and your mother? And now they'll ask, where's your mother or your father, right? They put the mom first. And he's like, you know why they do that? Because they don't want the man to be the top of the household anymore. And I'm like, okay. It was like, I surely hope you don't think like this.
That's what you take. Okay.
Yeah. And he was talking about like having an argument with his wife. And she was talking about cleaning the house or whatever. And she's like, we need to get this for my house. And he was like, He's like, no, no, no. You don't call it your house. This is my house because my name on
Oh,
it, right? Like that kind of thing. And I was like, oh God, she's old school. They're older generation.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
she's pretty subservient to him. But still, I'm just like that's so weird to me. And it's also like he goes on to explain that she calls it her house because every bit of the decoration in the house is her, like she has molded this house more her personality than he has, obviously.
I mean,
And it's just like,
that's
yeah, I would call it my house too if
usually
every bit of my blood, sweat, and tears go into it, you know. And but yeah. Anyways, it was like that's wild to me that people think like this, and especially that generation. And
different.
and,
It's a different
and yeah,
generation.
yeah, and they're the ones trying to, you know, I'm like, he's the one influencing me directly, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to teach you give you some
That's
wisdom
true.
here, because that's always how any conversation with that generation is. It's like, all right,
Right? We draw some
it's like,
knowledge.
hey, I watched this movie today. It was pretty cool. He's like, well, let me give you some wisdom about that movie. This is what it really meant, and this is how you should take it away. Like, Grenade. I was just watching The Little Mermaid. Okay, you can't give me wisdom about The Little Mermaid.
When they say under the sea, they mean under the seas of oppression. Makes them feel like they can't breathe and they're drowning. You know,
Yeah.
the
I
crab was Caribbean because let me stop.
right. So that was, spent 10 hours driving there with my grandfather. So 10 hours of that. Imagine 10 hours of that. And then 10 hours driving back with him. And again. So, like, and then there was
Crazy.
every night, it was just me and him in the hotel. So there was that too. And I'm like, okay. I'm not going to yell at you. That's not what I want to do. But I'm just like, I don't agree with some of your thoughts. Can we stop talking? you know, Sometimes that's just how it has to be. But
That's
wow, wow,
crazy.
wow. Alonso,
That's crazy.
how are you
Interesting.
doing?
First off, I want to say I appreciate your granddad that he's there in the first place.
Oh
Right.
yeah, 100%.
But yeah, he does say some out of whack shit. You gotta handle that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
Um,
make a podcast.
my week was
it's all love.
nowhere near as exciting as yours. I would say my highlight was coughing up blood yesterday.
Mm,
So,
mm.
and I didn't go to the doctor because I'm a stubborn person. So we'll see how that turns out. Your boy might be dead, America. So I don't know. I'm sure I'm fine. Possibly, maybe.
As my granddad would
We're gonna
say,
say I'm good.
as my granddad would say, that is the system telling us black folk that we don't need health and wellness in our lives, right? That's why you don't go to the
Oh
doctor,
gosh.
because the white man, no. But honestly, if you're feeling, you should go to the doctor, Alonzo. You
Yes.
still should go to the doctor, even right now. You should
Yes.
still go. But
We've since said such things. Alonzo is a grown man; he can make his own decisions. But
right,
we'll say that he's sticking it out because he's so dedicated to the podcast that he's willing
it's
to
true.
risk his life
Mm.
for this content to not
That's right,
disappoint
America.
the people.
Can we put a doctor emoji in the chat? I don't know if they have those, but put it in the chat. Say we love Alonso, get better, all that crap.
There you go.
You guys send this man some good vibes. He needs he needs everything. He needs a good doctor, but he'll take good
he,
vibes.
he needs a good doctor.
We'll take good vibes. But yeah, I mean, for me, definitely not as interesting as that. And shout out to your grandpa. Always interesting. Your family has some interesting stories in general, Robert. I mean, gosh, we gotta
Yeah.
we gotta get some recordings of these recordings. I say so we don't get in trouble for what they actually say on live podcast.
I brought my mic, and I was like, just in case, I was gonna hook it up and record some of the
You
conversation.
should
But
have.
I was
You
like,
should have.
right, I should have.
See, you're missing out on an opportunity right there.
Right, the next
Hey,
Daniel the Millionaire episode.
I'm,
Right?
I'm saying, but yeah, nothing really for me. I mean, all I've been doing is studying and working. Uh, super boring. Oh, my birthday just passed last week though, so I'm a year older. I'm 29. I'm an old man now. But I'm enjoying this last year in the 20s, and I mean, we'll see how it goes. It was cool. That was cool. Did a good amount of stuff. Ate some good restaurants, some really fancy foods. Um, and yeah, apparently it's restaurant week around here now, so I might actually try and go to some of these places again this week if they got some good deals, because I'm still very frugal. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think we all work around. I think like you were saying, the good thing about kind of us is we've been around intelligent people. I think you were saying like the guy Bill's another intelligent guy that you're kind of been around, and that helps because when you have intelligent people around you, even though at times they'll say outrageous things, in general, they are somewhat reliable for things that they're for no especially things they specialize in. They're very reliable for specialized things, but in general, they have a certain level of knowledge, baseline level of knowledge that makes you feel comfortable coming to them with certain things. Now, imagine if there's something that is all intelligent, an artificial intelligence, if you will. I,
These
that's today's
transitions.
topic, and that's today's topic. That's today's topic. Because we AI has kind of reared its head slowly but
Mm,
subtly in this last. It feels like the last couple of months, really, but last couple of years, really, and it's kind of getting progressively more and more integrated into our lives. But now it's starting to get integrated into more and more different things and things that I never even expected. But in general, I think a lot of people were kind of scared at the initial thoughts of AI because we think of iRobot and those sorts of things, or they're going to
mm.
take over, right? And maybe I don't know. I hope not, but at least not while I'm alive. or but but I hope not in general, But I think it's just such an interesting thing. Like this is probably the most futuristic thing, the most Back to the Future thing that's happened, from these movies in the past that we thought about. Oh, this is the considered futuristic, and this is probably the most like futuristic thing that's kind of living up to that kind of hype with like the holograms coming and like obviously like we expected hoverboards and floating cars by now if we haven't gotten. They did not deliver. Scientists, we're looking at you. Get it together. We need these floating cars. But this is kind of really interesting to me that we've gotten to this point. And I don't know, how do y'all feel about AI? I know we may as well just get all the way into it now. Like what do y'all feel about it? I know we're going to talk about kind of the pros and cons we feel at least, but like start with whichever one you want. But like I don't know, how do y'all feel about it in general?
In general, eh, in general, for me, it'd be hard to say that there's going to be more negative than more positive result from AI, right? So like
Mm,
in terms of like, oh, we're gonna a lot of what we want to learn, a lot of what we want to do in the future can now be almost like automated a little bit even more so that progression happens even faster. And that to me is would be a net positive. But to say that like obviously there aren't going to be so many, I mean even you think like as I'm saying about like progression, how that happened and took away so many jobs and all these other
right.
things. Like that same thing is now here's another you know another instance of that, and to me that's going to be the most concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I would say that I'm glad that I'm old and technologically incompetent. So all this AI stuff doesn't really matter to me. But at my job, one of the company higher ups, his name is Todd. He sent out emails to the workforce talking about, "Hey, ChatGPT is this new thing. We should totally use it in our work." And that's AI is the new buzzword. ChatGPT, obviously, it's the new thing that's come along in the past few months that the general public is aware of for AI conversations, doing work for people, getting a lot of stuff done that they probably couldn't have if they didn't have the time. Now they have the time with ChatGPT and AI. But it's the new buzzword for investors and customers. So everybody has to use it to look bleeding edge. But for me personally, how I think about it, AI, I don't really want to think about it. You brought up iRobot, which was a blast from the past. Most people would also talk about Terminator. I've never seen it, but I've heard great things. But still,
Gotta watch.
AI is this thing I wouldn't want to get involved with personally.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like me and technology, like I have a love hate relationship with technology in general. And like I again, and I talked a little bit about this to Robert when he dropped by like a little while ago, and I was like, our generation, we're the generation that's like the transition generation because we kind of grew up as technology grew up, which I thought is like makes it the most polarizing for us because like I said, it's like as we grow, we're kind of growing with technology. So the generation now is kind of growing with technology already a big thing, whereas it wasn't really like that for us. So we still have kind of almost the best of both worlds sort of thing, or like two very probably the truest perspective on technology because of we had kind of the birth of it and then we kind of saw the progression of it to where it is now. We kind of have a pretty good understanding of both sides of it and kind of the times where technology was like little to very very minimalistic really in lifestyles and how necessary it was. We went from MapQuest printing those out if you wanted to get directions to obviously having it on your phone within the space of like 10 or 15 years, which is like in and of itself it's amazing for people like me who are terrible with directions, which I've talked about before. But you know just in general, like there's great things about it, and obviously the convenience that it adds to life, which is great. Um, how helpful it can be with work is awesome. But then, like you talked about already, like some of the negatives with jobs and things like that. But like, I do just think it's like interesting in general as what it is. But like, yeah, like I don't. It's almost like it's starting to develop too quickly. I feel like at times, like because it's like in the last maybe 10 years or so, it's like man, like we were just trying to make phones thinner a second ago, and and now we're trying to make artificial beings like with sentient thoughts and feelings. It feels like the next thing we're going to get into, which is where we get into that whole iRobot Terminator sort of thing that people I think are really scared of. And I mean, maybe rightfully so. I don't know, but I don't know. You kind of talked about the progress in general, right, Roberts? I don't know. You want to? Is that kind of one of your positives? Is like the progress it can kind of the progress it can kind of help lead humanity through.
Definitely. That is one, and I wanted to specifically talk about the game industry, and I recently saw something where someone was playing. There's a game I think in demo where all of the characters have this AI built into it so that they can have full on conversation with you directly, right? So you
Mm,
talk through your mic to the AI, and the AI responds to you, whatever. And I think that this is going to change gaming big time, right? Imagine that. Imagine how immersive a game would feel. Like even if you're like a detective and now you have to go and investigate people directly, like really ask them real questions and get real responses that feel like supernatural and stuff like that. That I'm like, um, that is going
Crazy.
to change gaming completely. I'm just
It's
saying,
gonna
like
be
it's
crazy.
and I think it's going to be so good and so fun to play those games, to really live those lives. Um, to me that's going to be one of the biggest breakthroughs that you can use this, how you can use it. And the other things in terms of like media and things like that, I mean, I find it to be cool but not groundbreaking enough that like I'm experiencing something new. But
Mm.
like games are where I'm just like, oh no. Like AI generated movie, AI generated images, AI generated like songs, like okay, great. But a game that then incorporates this is just feels different to me. Well, or much that I'm assuming here, but like
Mm.
is like down the road will feel so different than how we, and I think that's also gets to a point there where I'm like, I've been playing games, and to me they just feel like, I don't know, like it just feels so boring. Like I don't know, it's like nothing to me is making me excited, and I'm waiting for that thing, the new thing that'll like, oh, here is something new. I mean, like I've been playing Street Fighter. I've been playing, when we play Paragon, Alonso, or we play, you know, like God of War even. And then God of War is a franchise that I loved. But like then I'm playing it and I'm just like, oh well, I'm just pressing buttons. Now you know what I mean? Like eventually it gets to a point where I'm just pressing the buttons. I'm not experiencing something new here. And that's what I'm waiting for. And that's what I think AI could do. Um I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
Mm.
Well, if I could play devil's advocate, what about the peoples whose jobs are being taken? Because, like,
To develop those
I mean,
storylines
it's
and those yeah.
yeah, develop the storylines, but there are jobs for people to develop the background dialogue you hear,
Hmm.
like for the, I guess, NPCs. Like they have full on conversations when you walk by. There are
Hmm.
people dedicated to making those up, and I know it's menial. You probably don't get paid well. It's
Mm.
probably just a long task they have to do, but it's still something.
Right.
And you know,
The voice
I mean,
actors as
I
well. Yeah.
voice
Yep.
actors, yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
um,
Yep.
yeah, you certainly can get to a point where um, I've seen there's contracts coming up for voice actors where they say, "Hey, we'll record your voice and then we'll have an AI use it, and we'll only pay you once, but we can use your voice with the AI for the rest of all time." I'm just
Yeah.
like, that's messed up. So
And
that's
there's no way they're giving them top dollar for that either.
no,
Yeah.
Right.
not at all. Like, and then other aspects of games like background art, um, dialogue, storylines, AI generated environments. Like those are people's jobs, livelihoods being taken away. And I
Mhm.
get that it's sort of cool, sort of bleeding edge, but I don't know. I would expect a human element to stay involved just to make
Yeah.
a story more impactful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the one thing that helps it is that before I get into another to a similar point, but before I get into that, I do think that the AI I've heard is not that clean and crisp as like a
Mm-hmm.
natural human's voice right now. So I don't think that's smart for a game developer making a credible game to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they were doing that, they definitely would suffer a drop in quality in the, especially as far as like the audio of the game, and that would affect the immersion of the game, of course. So probably not an immediate issue, definitely a future issue, and probably if it keeps progressing at this speed, a near future issue. Um, that I am a little bit worried about. And that's kind of like my big negative too for like AI in general. At least one of the big negatives that I had is that, yeah, like especially for multimedia and like artistry of different types, like that is, I think, the main core people that are most in trouble are like the people that are in the arts, like whether it's voice acting, whether it's like you said background art, whether it's like even just like regular like artists in general, like because like now you see some of these like photographers and things like that, the AI generated like pictures that people are getting of like them in different locations and like different body type, all this sorts of stuff. Which again, here we go with more catfishing. Golly, here it comes. It's gonna be insane soon, you know. But anyway, but yeah, and I'm just like that is definitely like a little bit disheartening. But then again, like that's also just something that's a part of any sort of progress in humanity. Like, yeah, like people that used to drive, like used to do like the rickshaws, they lost their jobs when we got cars. And people that used to like be the ones that getting hunted food. Once they got big industries that did like the hunting, they probably weren't as needed. So their big hunting families not as if they don't progress with the times, then they kind of get left behind. And I think it's kind of similar to that, like with a lot of other things. Like, I mean, there's certain skills that'll pretty much always be useful and always be very difficult to make solely, AI or computer based or technology based. But then, like, generally, I think a lot of these skill sets you can find ways to make yourself more. Um, you can find ways to make yourself a little more valuable, which is annoying, I'm sure, for those people because they've worked really hard on these crafts a lot of times. But yeah, I think it'll be difficult. I think for certain areas of multimedia, like photography and even like artistry, I think there'll still be a place for them because I think it's like I said, it's still difficult for AI to do certain things. I think to the level at which these people that are really good at these fields that can do them. But I do think, like I guess, like I said at this time, like it's going to be to a point where like it's going to be good enough that these people are really going to be in danger, and that's I don't think as far away as we might think. That's what's going to kind of suck for a lot of these people. But that's kind of how things go with humanity progressing. So you kind of have to find new ways to kind of be in and around it.
Yeah. I think big time that you know we're as a society are going to have the big questions about like, okay, well, can this do this? Yes. Should this do this? You know, I don't know. And especially when it comes to like creative art and specifically like you're saying, I agree that like should it do it? I mean, I don't think so. Like I don't see. I mean, it's similar to. It's not similar, but I am drawing the line similarly to like actors and actresses in Hollywood, like in movies, and how they're like, okay, well, we have a black person that we need to portray on the screen. Well, could we get a white person to play that black person? Like, yeah, yeah, we could. Should we do that? Absolutely not. And like there's plenty of talent that could also do that thing, right? That are also fit the role too. So why not just do that? I mean, like I know I'm saying one that like
Yeah,
definitely hasn't happened in a long time, but like I
right, right,
mean, Keanu Reeves playing an Asian person or whatever. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. Like like yeah, like has it happened? Yeah, yeah, should it happen? No. And again, I think we're going to think about it similarly when it comes to AI. It's like, all right, can we have AI generate this thing and we eliminate our whole art department? It's like, yeah, should we
Right.
do that though? It's like probably not. I mean, it doesn't seem like what benefit are we having other than at the corporate level, you know?
No,
I think that's the problem.
I do think that that's the one thing I do want to add because it also goes into one of my positives. And like I said, I'm playing off of you guys more this time for this reason because I think that could be one of the positives though. We know it's well documented, especially with like manga artists and animators for like anime, and even some like voice actors as well. Like kind of the struggles they've had to go through with like heavy workloads and like especially like manga
Mm,
artists and like
mm,
and anime artists and directors. Like it's well documented they have health issues, really long hours. like having to say, super long hiatuses because of like, just getting just destroyed from work,
Mm.
so, and they just can't do it anymore. So I think that could be the good part, is that if we use these things to augment some of these people and like help them and like decrease burnout, decrease how much of the workload they have to do and how quickly they have to do it, then I think that could be good. That could be good. Now the issue is, are they going to keep that balance, and is it going to, because right now I'm sure it's not as cost
Slippery slope.
effective, right?
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Now you're depending on corporate to now feel human, and that's not good. No one wants to count on corporate to feel human, because you will definitely not get that, at least not for a long enough period, uh, to really mean anything. So we're but that is one of the positives, I think, is that it could really reduce burnout for a lot of careers, like even stuff in medicine. Like if you can find ways to like, set up monitoring systems for certain vital signs or certain arrhythmias and things like that, where, oh, okay, it'll alert people quicker, or it'll alert, like, let's say, you got a lot of doctors on long shifts, or people want to do like, call from different parts of the from their home or something like that, and it is a better alert system now that wakes them up easier, or like alerts them if it's something actually urgent rather than maybe not urgent, maybe urgent. That's very subjective based on like, whatever person is there over the night, which may have whatever level of experience. So it's like, it could be beneficial. It could be beneficial in reducing burnout, reducing workload, reducing stress, and like some of those, tougher, more subjective decisions, making them more objective, which would be a good thing. Um, but again, it's like, again, we're counting on these people up top to still be like, oh, there's real people behind this that are affected. Let's not just wipe them out the second this proves to be a little bit useful. And history tells us that that's exactly what they're gonna do. So it's like, I mean, I'm the optimist in me. It's like, oh, this could be really good. This could be really good for everyone's work-life balance. But once it gets too good for the work-life balance, then yeah, here comes big corporate with their big stick and just knocking you out of the building. Get out of here.
Yeah. I agree, and I don't trust. I don't want to put that in the hands of one person ever, right? So
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna make the right decision to, uh,
Brother.
only use it when needed. Last, last possible effort. It's like, no, they're gonna be like, oh well, I mean, but I just saved $1,000. Well,
Right.
why would I not use this more often? You know,
Right.
what say you, Alonso? Positive or negative?
Well, trying to piggyback off of that, one of my negatives was kind of a loss of skill in the human
Mm-hmm.
race, because we're seeing now a lot of students are using ChatGPT to do their work, AI to look at models and do their work for them and get stuff done. We've seen examples of AI being able to do certain different tests, like law tests, medical tests, like I forget what they call. I think it's like the bar exam and the LSAT or something like that. Um, so they're able to do certain different types of tests. They're able to do different assignments for people, get the work done. So people aren't going to be, developing the skills necessary. Um, and I know this coming from me, my generation, our generation, we're the No Child Left Behind, where they taught us how to take tests instead of learning stuff. But I feel like it's going to be even more of a brain drain, in a sense of losing skills, because they're just going to be better
It's true.
suited to just provide a prompt to an AI, almost like Google searching, but with the added benefit that the AI can possibly give them answers that in quicker time, I guess, all the right answers, all the right things to say. Um, and that is to say, like, AI is not reliable at all, so they still could mess them up, could make them fail. There's no guarantees with it, but still, I think it's going to be leading to some sort of skill gap. So we'll have engineers getting through school using ChatGPT. They get to the real world, and we're like, "What the hell is an ohm? What the
Mhm.
hell? What the hell is it?
Yeah.
Mm,
What? Like, how do I
mm,
build a bridge?
mm.
Do I do ChatGPT build a bridge for me?" And we're like, "No, you can't do that.
Mm,
You gotta do it right. You gotta save lives." Like,
Right.
yeah.
so it's gonna be weird.
I agree completely with that, and that was actually very similar to the only negative that I had written down too was yeah like and I want to bridge it to something else too, but yeah I feel like when I was younger and also like when I was first learning how to learn, I like to think that I was like a selective learner, right? That I was like, okay, if I need this, I'll put it in my brain. And if I don't need it, I'm not putting it in my brain. So I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm an engineer. All right, I want math. Give me that. Put that in my brain. Put that in my brain. Then when it came to history, I was like, I don't need that. Get that out of here. You know, and same with like biology and all that other stuff that I'm just like, oh, well, I don't need that. So I'm not putting that in my brain. And then it came to like when you get your calculators and stuff, like all these mathematical functions that you're like, oh well, I don't need to know that because I can get that answer, so I'm not going to save that. So get that out of my brain. Get that out of my brain. Well, I think now ChatGPT has just become the upgraded calculator, right? It's like, now what do you need in your brain? Like,
Right.
no, ChatGPT has all of it. I don't need to learn any history. I don't need any English because I can say, ChatGPT, write me a thing that they told me to write exactly, and it spits it out easy peasy. Like, if that truly is its use, then okay, right? I'm like, I agree that then eventually you get to a point where like, what what are you learning? Like, what, like, similar to what you said about the how we were taught to test. I mean, they gave us calculators.
Right.
They told us how to use the calculators. I didn't I
Right.
didn't I
Right.
didn't learn them myself, right? They told us how to do this. Like, oh yeah, all right, when you get to this problem, put this in, and then you get to draw these lines, and then like they told us how to use them. So I'm like, similarly, you think they're gonna teach people you know, Chat GPT, it's like, all right, well, if you had to write something like this, go to Chat GPT and type these things in, and then it spits out your document, for you. I'm like, yeah, eventually it's definitely going to get to a point where that's a problem. But I think also, you know, to the opposite side of what you're saying, that it's going to be part of the skill too, though. Like in your resume, if you put, oh, I know how to ask ChatGPT questions. I know how to,
Yeah.
whatever they call it, like program
Right.
ChatGPT. I know how to
Yeah.
do that, and now that's a skill. That like, oh,
Yeah.
I could write, I could write these many, papers in a day because I could ask ChatGPT
Right.
to do it or whatever. So yeah, I honestly think that like not only is it going to reduce the amount of skills that people have, but also now that is the skill, is using this AI. It's like how good are you? How good you are at using the AI is now that's the skill that they want
Yeah.
in the workforce. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that part I don't think is necessarily as much of an issue because those are calculations. You know,
Mm,
those are
mm,
calculations. But to understand the calculations, you still have to have a baseline knowledge.
very
It
true.
doesn't
Very true.
explain it doesn't explain it. It can't explain it without certain terminologies. It can't
Mm,
explain it without certain baseline knowledge. Like I could put in a formula, but if I don't understand the answer or the formula that I just used, then it's just useless numbers and gibberish for me. So,
mm,
I mean, I think that part of it is more acceptable to me because that is just a natural progression. Like you said, it is the next calculator. I mean, that's okay, I think, because that all that does is like when we were in class, instead of us having to learn, you know, other things that now have been learned, we can just add into the calculator. we could take the time to go more in depth on things that are maybe more important for the practical application, you know,
Mm.
which
Mm.
is a good thing. So, and that was the benefit of having some of this technology when we were growing up, you know. And same thing for like instead of having to write papers, you know, we could type them, which you know again became a little bit more beneficial for a lot of people because they could type faster, they could write, and they could type cleaner, you know. So you didn't have to get
Mm.
great on sloppiness and all those stuff too, you know. So that was always there's always those benefits. And I was like same with spell check and things like that, you know, which I would argue makes us worse spellers, but also not as important, you know,
Mm.
in today's society, you know. So I don't mind things like that are like actual advancements. That those are the things that I you know want. You know, advancements that take away things that are just tedious. Really, don't involve you know workplace things. Don't really help anyone. Like, but they only kind of slow things down and making those sorts of things more streamlined. That's the good thing. That is the best part of technology. Is making things that you know are very tedious and difficult simpler. That is technology's point to me, I think, for most people. And that's good, you know. But you know, it definitely levels to it because ours was just like what Wolfram Alpha and freaking Chegg.
Yeah,
And like
very much.
so I mean we still had to do a lot of learning, you know, besides the calculators, you know. So and even those were again inexact, you know, science is like so I still and those never really got perfected. So I think AI is gonna be one of those things like it's not gonna be perfected, at least not for public use for a long time. You know,
Mm.
like I don't think they're gonna redevelop the resources and make them available to public, at least for free, especially, you know, at that level of proficiency at any point soon. Now, again, if you're a person like you were saying that's really gets really proficient at using it, then that becomes you know a skill, and that is okay because that's what technology does. It makes new jobs too, which is a benefit too because you lose some jobs, but then it makes new jobs, and if you go and learn that skill, now you have a new job that is now you know irreplaceable and very valuable for the next 20, 30, 40, whatever 50 years, you know.
Mm.
So that's another benefit that's a good thing. So I think that's a great part of it, but I mean, it doesn't make it less of a scary prospect for a lot of people because that's still now a skill that you already had to spend a lot of time learning. Now you got to learn a different skill, which I'm sure for a lot of people is scary in and of itself, if not just straight up tedious.
The bridge that I wanted to get to was like, okay, now if we think that AI is definitely going to affect the things we learn, then that is also, to an extent going to affect like how we communicate and how we talk. And here we go again that like it's impacting now the singularity, right? Like everyone was going to is becoming the same person, this internet personality that I hate. And
Right.
and now with AI now saying that like here's how you talk to people. Here's how like even simple prompts are now these long bios, right? They're like, oh well, that this is you should be able to ask one question and get this amount of information from something or someone, right? And I'm like, now you're impacting how people's lives, people that how they interact with people now. And I think that's also going to be a pretty weird thing possibly in the future, that like, okay, well, people, I'm saying, like, we were raised on the internet, now being raised by AI. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm
Right.
like, that is going to be weird. That has to be weird. That's just like, okay, well, we used to, like, one thing that I know is like, we used to be okay with not knowing something, right? Like,
Right.
oh, like I say something and maybe it's generally close to being correct but not correct, right? And it's like, well, I don't know what it was. It was like this person. It's like, oh, there was a king in you know Belgium or something like that, and during, I think it was Leopold or something like that. It was like during this time, and
Leopold.
it's like, okay, it it's okay that we don't know it, right? It's like that has not been a problem, and then internet came by, and it's not okay. No, now it's never been okay to not know something. Now it's like, oh well, Google says it's this, so you should have known. You should have known. I mean, you had it in your hand. You should know. And now AI is taking it even to a next level, right? It's like, well, what do you mean you know the answer to that general moral question? AI tells you everything you need to know about this situation. Like that's
No.
gonna be crazy.
I hope the AI dependence to get to that level. I hope not, man.
How should I feel about this situation? Oh well, AI told me I should feel this way. Well, well then I'm good. Yeah, like, man.
Seems like a
Imagine
melancholy type of day
Yeah.
for AI. AI tells you to be melancholic today.
Right. Like imagine that. Yeah, you're gonna wear a camera on your head and like experience your whole day, and then you throw that through an algorithm, and then the algorithm, and then you go, "How should I feel about today?" The algorithm goes, "You had a pretty bad day, sir. You should take a break. You should take a break."
This sounds like some Black Mirror-ish twist is gonna happen.
You're right. You're right. I did. Yeah.
Oh, God, no,
All right.
no,
I will
no,
take a
no.
break. AI. Chat GPT. You're right.
No more of this nonsense. Alonzo, speak
Okay.
some sense, please. Please
All
speak
right.
some sense. Speak some sense.
I think Alonso, you still have a good something good to say about.
Something good. Let's see. It does identify patterns. AI does. Matt talked about earlier for medical uses, like identifying different sorts of arrhythmias, patterns in the heart with the medical equipment. At my job, we use sort of primitive AI to identify, LTE signals for interference purposes. So if there's a signal in the radio spectrum, it identifies it as LTE. We know, okay, what can we do to filter it out? What can we do to mitigate the interference? Um, One of the cool things I found out was that they're using AI again in the medical field, but for creating more potent medicines. So they're using it for gene sequencing to create different sorts of, I guess, combinations of I don't know what the word is. I forget now. But they're creating different combinations for the medicines. It can predict the efficacy and the side effects. So I'm just like, that's pretty cool. Like you don't have to go through all that work to sequence something. You can just have the AI go through millions of iterations in seconds and find out something important that could be the cure for cancer one day. And it takes much less work and you're not really putting anybody out of a job because you still got somebody who needs to test it out, needs to get it approved by the FDA and all that stuff. So that's one of the one things I saw that was like, okay, we can work in unison with this to do so good for the world.
Right.
And AI is something, it can do it quick, cheap, and it doesn't harm anybody, I guess.
Yeah. That's the ideal. That is the ideal. Is to like we're kind of talking about is basically just to make things better. Just make things better. In general, like make things that are hard easier. Make things that suck less sucky. That's what we want from technology in general. And then cool things in addition, floating cars and cool VR games and stuff like that. And sword art is coming. Clearly, it's going to be the next thing. That's clearly the next thing. That's what Robert wants. That's what Robert wants. This thing to electric shock him when he gets stabbed. Ready. He wants to feel it in his chest. So Robert, this man needs full immersion game. But yeah, I mean, that's the hope, man. That's really the hope for all this is that it kind of leads us into a new era of like technological advancement in the best way possible. That's like in unison and not just leaving people behind. And I think that's the one benefit of this new generation coming up with technology is that they're used to it being technology. So they're going to be, I feel like, more inclined to keep learning about technology and not just be left in the dust. And I think, and that's, I as bad as this is gonna sound, the older generations that are really not used to it, they're gonna kind of be like, kind of really just transitioning out, and like our generation who's going to be kind of like I said, the transition years for this whole thing are we're all at this point pretty much okay with technology, okay with learning more about it. None of us are really like fighting it a whole lot, really, for the most part. Obviously, can't speak for everyone in our generation, but like I think for the vast majority of us, we're cool with advancements of it and using it and being a part of it. So I think that's the greatness of it is that it shouldn't at this point, put as many people out, and it should kind of create more than it destroys. I hope, at least.
I agree with that. Like, yeah, I am. Well, one thing I wanted to say about uh Alonzo, you're talking about just small medical changes, but yeah, I think definitely the large change when it comes to any, well, a lot of medical breakthroughs are going to come through like AI or
Yeah.
you know the assistance of technology in general, right? It's like, I mean, we're already seeing that, but like, yeah, like, and that's crazy to think that like they're you know that, again, why I said that there's net positive. It has to be net positive, right? Like,
Yeah,
eh,
we hope.
eh, yeah.
Humans tend to turn things that should be net
Right,
positive into
right.
negatives. Is my fear, is that we're gonna
Like,
mess it up. Not the technology to be to blame ever for me, but we're gonna find a way, as humanity does, to f something up.
and yeah, and we've seen also that like in general, like our only limitations right now is like our hardware. It's like AI is pretty good because our hardware is pretty good. Now imagine when our hardware also becomes great, amazing. It's like, oh well,
Right.
when quantum computing comes out, right? And then like you're saying, like a bad guy gets quantum computing and now is able to do all the bad things he wants as fast as he possibly wants, then yeah, I mean, similar to what you're saying, I mean, imagine AI then helping bad guys do bad guy things. Like,
Right.
speaking of generalities, but I'm just like, yeah, like, I mean, is everything protected to a degree that AI could not beat it? Like, I
Right.
don't know. Like, definitely not everything. Like,
No.
especially definitely not everything
Us.
that definitely needs to be protected.
Definitely not the stuff we have.
Yeah,
Maybe the
yeah,
government, but us, we're screwed.
yeah, yeah,
Regular people are done.
yeah. Like they're already, they already had this thing about like all these bots and stuff being on Facebook to influence, political stuff. And it's like, imagine that to the next degree
Nth degree,
on
right?
like, oh, now these sound like personal stories now these are
Right.
real things happening.
Right.
It's like, oh well, or manipulate things that are real and then make
Right.
them into this narrative. I'm like, yeah, yeah, AI is going to be crazy good at that, no doubt.
Right.
No doubt, AI is going to just get better and better at that. And
And
again,
I.
influencing the singularity, right? Like,
Right.
people, yeah, like, oh, well, I'm clicking on that, and I feel this way about that. I'm like, yeah. Just like everyone else, You're not
Gotcha.
thinking twice, yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot good to come of it. There's obviously a lot of dangers there, and hopefully, we just
Yeah.
we see how to use it.
Right. But I mean, there's no, let's be realistic. It's gonna be negatives. It's for sure gonna be people that are gonna misuse it. That's just what people do. And I think, and it's crazy because I saw an article like just a few days ago, and this was not even this is well after we decided to talk about this, which I thought was interesting. I think it's somewhere in Europe. Is it Russia? Somewhere. It was somewhere in Europe where they were like putting out a lot of like this big campaign, like don't put your children's pictures online, or be careful what your children's pictures you put online because people are using them and using AI generated now like IDs and all this sort of stuff to basically like use them to put your children's faces on like stuff, and then you could find out your children have criminal records that they have nothing to do with, and it's like
Mm.
because they took their identification from just your picture or something like that, which I think is insane that people would do that, in general, to think, oh yeah, I should frame this child for a crime. That's insane. But but it's insane that you even have to think like, oh, I can't share pictures of my freaking kids, in this current day and age, which is just, now we're gonna have to encrypt pictures, learn to encrypt pictures for social media, as a general daily thing that's gonna be crazy anyway.
Mm.
But I think, getting away from the negatives, since I feel like we're closing kind of now. One big thing that I think is, I don't know if it's a positive, but it was just so shocking for me, is that AI has now made its way into just like social media in general. And now there's like all these like covers for songs and like
Mm.
random like it's like random like dialogues that are like supposed to be funny, and we're putting like Biden's voice over this dialogue, or like Obama's voice, or
Mm.
freaking Trump's voice, or something like that. And now like there's all these songs now that are having covers by like Squidward and SpongeBob and Patrick Star. And that's what I want to show you guys one after this. But that's just not what I expected when I saw AI when I was a kid. That's not what I expected.
Mm.
We're gonna use SpongeBob characters to make banger songs. That's what we're doing with this technology. Like, okay, and using our presidents to say like outrageously ghetto-ish. Like, yeah, okay, like that's what we're gonna do with this, technology. Oh, it's so stupid, but at the same time, it's almost refreshing to think, you know, even as technology progresses, people just don't change. We're still just so freaking silly and just
Mhm.
like doing dumb stuff that's also just like for laughs, and we're still going to be
Mhm.
like a humanity that I think can enjoy those sorts of simple things of like laughter and like joy and like love and those sorts of things. Well, technology might have more of a part to play in some of these things, but I think the genuine human emotion part of it, I hope at least, will continue to be the core driving factor in all of this. So I hope.
I couldn't say it a better way. Mm. I I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, man. I
What say
mean,
you, Alonso?
I don't have nothing to say either. I've been seeing them weird stuff on Twitch though. They got like a
Yeah.
whole AI genre now.
right.
See Trump playing Biden in chess, and their voices is weird. I don't know. People are weird. That's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
This is
They
what we
would
want to
pay.
do with
You know
technology.
how many
Nobody getting hurt, at
freaking
least.
subs that channel gets, dude? It's crazy. I'm like there was like a debate one that they had up for a while, and it was like they were getting so much money, man. Like, and it was all going to the same guy. Like, and people just, I'm like, oh, I wish I was better at programming, dude. I'd been on that shit. What do you mean? Give me that money.
Well, maybe you could have been better at programming if you just did a little bit extra.
You what?
Extra time. That was good, Matt. That was really good. Oh, all right. So we're getting closer to meaningful sports nearing the end of the summer. But today we have Wimbledon, the men's tennis final. Carlos Alcaraz of Spain beat one of the best of all time, Novak Djokovic, for the title. So congrats to him. Earlier this week, the U.S. men's national soccer team lost in the Gold Cup semifinal to Panama, who's currently playing Mexico for the championship. There's always next year's Olympics for the men's team for the U.S., but I found out that it was the first time the U.S. men's team has actually made it to the Olympics since 2008. So good luck to them next year. It's been a long time coming.
Right.
Major League Baseball's All-Star game happened on Monday last week with the National League beating the American League. Game was blown open by a 2-run homer by a 32-year-old first-time All-Star named Elias Diaz. So congrats to him. He was named the MVP for his efforts. Um,
Nice.
and he had a nice story. He was only signed for $20,000 out of Venezuela a couple years, way back in the day. So
Dang.
he's certainly made the come up. So congrats to him.
All
The
right.
ESPYS happened
Nice.
on Wednesday. If you don't know what the ESPYS are, they're a sports awards show hosted by the ESPN.
Oh yeah.
Here are some winners from the night. Kansas City Chiefs of the NFL took home the honor of being the best team. There was some debate about that. The best championship performance goes to Lionel Messi for winning the FIFA World Cup for Argentina. Best women athlete was a skier named Michaela Schriffen. So congrats to her. And then the best male athlete was quarterback Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So congrats to all those winners. There was a lot more that went on that night, but congrats to them. But I wanted to talk to you guys about cricket. Our new sponsor, Cricket Wireless. If you go to the sport of cricket. So apparently there is something called Major League Cricket that's coming to the United States. International cricket is it's the second biggest sport in the world behind soccer, but it's never really gained any traction here in the U.S. But Major League Cricket wants to change that. It's going to have 6 teams this summer with a format of cricket called T20. So apparently that's a shorter version of cricket that only lasts 3 hours per match, because cricket can last up to 5 days apparently in other forms of matches. So I could do that.
No.
So, first off, do either of you know anything about cricket? So I don't know anything. I tried reading from Wikipedia, and that shit ain't made no sense. But the only thing I understand is that I don't understand, and it reminds me of an early Family Guy episode where a British guy starts talking about cricket, and it make no damn sense. It was a funny scene. I would play it, but it actually contains a slur at the end of it, so I'm not going to play it. But it's funny enough.
Don't endorse that.
We don't endorse that at all. But again, do either of you know anything about cricket? Would you be interested in watching a cricket match? And do you have any ideas on why popular sports like soccer and cricket aren't more popular in the U.S.? Can AI fix that?
Bring it back. I will say that don't know anything about cricket. I'm not a sports guy in general, but when I was in high school, yes. When I was in high school, I had a Pakistani friend who he would talk about cricket all the time, and yeah, I mean, he was a cool guy. I think I talked to you about him. He was the one who was like, I what did he say? He's like, I dated my cousin, but she was a distant cousin. And I was like,
oh, that guy.
Yeah, that's it.
He's
like, what do you mean my distant cousin? He was like, she's my my aunt's daughter. And I was like, that is not distant cousin. As the least distant it could be. No.
Shout out to him if he's watching.
And then in college, one of the lab guys for Dr. Geddes, I don't remember Dr. Geddes Alonso, but Dr. Geddes, one of his TAs, he was also from that area, Indian, area, and he would also talk about cricket all the time. He talked about cricket a lot, and again, did not know anything about that, but every now and then he'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna go play with my friends. We're playing some cricket today. And I was like, really? Like, how do you even you got that set up? You can set that up somewhere easily? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I know there's some parallels to baseball a little bit, but other than that, I don't know anything about cricket.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of why doesn't soccer or any of those sports come to the United States now? I just think well, one, I think we want to be different. I don't know why, but we always want to be
Yes.
different, right? It's like, all right, yeah, we're not going to use a metric system. Fuck that shit. Let's make it difficult for everybody. Like like
Right.
that type of shit is the same thing we do with like American football, right? And American baseball. It's
Right.
like, oh no, I mean, why would we play cricket? Because we have this, right? Like, why would we play soccer when we have American football where we
Right.
don't use our feet? Like that kind of
Second
shit.
kickoff. Right.
It's like I think that's major reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I so don't know a lot about cricket. I think the things that they knock down are called wickets that the pitchers are
Mm,
trying to knock down. They
mm,
use a paddle to hit, and it's like this sort of motion,
mm.
and then they throw like this, which is like a wheel motion, which is interesting. And I too had a Pakistani friend in high school, and he only threw like that. And I'd be like, "What are you doing?" Everybody be like, "What are you doing?" And then with Shaw, they would just yell, "Shaw, what are you doing?" You know, I don't know why. I just yelled his name so much, but there's a.
I'm playing the game. I don't know what
But
y'all
yeah,
doing.
right. Like you just regular. Anyway, it's funny. Anyway, but yeah, and he would talk about cricket. He's like, it's from cricket. Like no one plays cricket in
Mhm.
America. Anyway, but yeah. So and I actually like when I moved to my current building, there's a parking lot like right to the right of this building, and one Sunday evening I was coming back from like I think I was working a shift or whatever, came back and there's dudes playing cricket in the parking lot. And I was like, I was like, maybe I'm tired from my long shift. What am I seeing right now? These people playing cricket. I'm like, first off, this is like downtown. Like, why are you? You gonna hit someone's car? Break a
Mm.
glass? Like, what are you doing? But anyway, I thought that was funny. That was the only two real cricket encounters were those two. But yeah, very very interesting sport. My initial question that Alonzo did answer is, I know Americans do not have the patience for cricket because I knew how long it can get. Being a
Mm.
big soccer person myself, obviously, I know about a little bit more about at least a little bit, a little teeny bit about some of the other more popular European sports and cricket. Even for Europeans, cricket is sometimes too long. So I was like, for an American, there's no way. You know, like you said, days watching the sport. Like I still don't. I never looked into it, but I still don't really understand how it can be days. I think there's like recesses or something. I don't know. It's weird. But like days of the same sport. I'm like, first off, getting off of work for multiple days for a sport, like, how you gonna do that anyway? But
Mm.
it's like, yeah, I don't think that was gonna work. So, but then he explained like the shortened formats. Like, okay, yeah, that might work better. But I mean, there's Americans that don't even like baseball because of the slow format. So I don't know if bringing another baseball esque sort of thing is gonna really help much or really do anything for people because cricket is probably more similar to baseball than any other sport is to soccer, and people still aren't really interested in soccer. I mean, people are, but generally people that aren't from America,
Mm.
people that are from other cultures that are American, but they're like families from other cultures tend to be more interested in soccer than like people that are just like generations and generations in America. So that's, I don't know. Yeah, and I think like the part of it is that there's sports put in place to kind of take over those, spots, and then like once someone kind of grows up with a sport for generations, it's kind of hard just all of a sudden introduce something, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when America was kind of founded and like starting out, it was all about American pride and like proud to be an American sort of thing. And so it's like all these very American things like football, apple pie, and baseball. Like, and then basketball, obviously, because we
Mm.
tend to have, again, we're really good at it, which also helps us to be, basketball is it's probably like it's still a pretty top tier sport. It's still across other countries, but more than American football and baseball, I would think. But like basketball, I feel like it wouldn't be that popular if we weren't super good at it.
Mm.
We're just super good at it. We got the tallest people, and that's why in short, that's why we're the best at it. But I mean, obviously now we have more skilled people, but I think, yeah, being better at it also makes it more popular. So that's one thing. And then again, like it's just not in the culture. It's not a part of the culture, American culture growing up. So it's kind of hard to just integrate something all of a sudden into American culture that wasn't there. So I think that's kind of the reason most of that stuff isn't really that popular here. Yeah, it kind of goes against the American patriotism that a lot of people in the country, I think, are fond of. But I don't know. I don't have any issue with. Obviously, love soccer, but to each their own. That's why there's a different sports for different people.
Yeah, I think definitely if they were to introduce it now, it'd be kind of like that choice fatigue thing. Like you guys heard of that? It's like, oh well, now, all right, what movie are you gonna watch next when 7 blockbusters come out? At the same time. It's
Right.
like, it's like, all right, I don't know, right? So then similar, I think, happens when you have all these different sports and like everyone's trying to, it's like, oh, this sport is good, this sport is great, this sport is great. It's like, all right, well, fuck, find one and then pick that one, right? So I don't know. Like you said, it is something that like that you're brought into though. I would say like definitely like a family love of something. It definitely helps to like, oh, okay, like my mom's into football. That's the only reason I watch football at all. you know, so that kind of thing. It's like it's all family related too. It's like find an American family that has watched cricket, and well, well, there's your problem.
Right. Where the limit does not exist. Need Chat GPT
Yeah.
to find a family that watches cricket in America. But
There you go.
But anyway, before we get to a point where we're needing the crickets, we'll go ahead and end things. That was a bad one. Ugh. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely
man,
hear some crickets already.
Right?
Oh no, we had it. That's what.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely time to go ahead and close it out. And I think it's just been good though. I think AI is an interesting topic. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about in and around it in the coming months to years because it's not slowing down. But definitely interesting the way that it's developing right now. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But thanks as always for watching with us here. We appreciate you taking some time to procrastinate with us. And again, y'all have a good week. We out.